morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the November 16, 2021 council meeting.
Iris De Carvalho.
Here.
Dave Line.
Here.
Soldner.
Here.
Bagwell.
Here.
Garza.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our prayer will be given by Tanya with the First Mennonite Church.
Good morning. I just want to give credit before I pray. I'm using some language from my colleague, Pastor Jim Unruh. During COVID, he started a podcast that he called Beautiful Salt City. Some of you maybe have heard it. I don't know. You can find it on our website. But he talks about having sort of a community vision of a future story for Hutchinson. And I'll be using some of his language about what he dreams for. So let's pray together. Holy God, as we pause to pray this morning, let us still ourselves in your presence. You who are with us, you whose love is new every morning. We trust that all day long you are working for good in the world. We give you thanks for the rest we have received. We look at the coming day with anticipation and hope because we trust you are indeed at work in our lives, in our neighbors' lives, in our city, our county, our country, and around the world. But here in this space this morning, I pray especially for the city of Hutchinson and this city council and our city manager. Thank you for the unique gifts that each of them bring. May they, in their task of governance, set aside whatever may hinder them from seeing and working toward making this a beautiful salt city for all. Guide them and help us to together work toward a shared future vision of Hutchinson where everyone is safe, everyone has sufficient resources, food, water, shelter, and more. Everyone has caring and connecting relationships, and everyone has opportunity to share their gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Item 4, a proclamation for Community Foundation Week.
How are you there?
Okay. You take it.
We've muted the phone in the conference room. We will unmute that when we're at the point. So, you need to mute it again. Bye.
Sure, thanks.
Okay.
I don't know if that was germane or not.
Okay, whereas Hutchinson recognized the importance of our community's philanthropic sector and the critical importance of the charitable giving from residents and businesses and organizations, and whereas then 750 community foundations across the U.S. and more than 100 in Kansas catalyze to promote the values of and benefit of local philanthropy, and whereas for 32 years the Hudson Community Foundation has made $92.7 million in grants to the community, established 339 funds, and provided tools for Hudson residents and business organizations to create permanent philanthropic resources for the current future needs for our community. Also, individuals from all walks of life to exercise generous and be philanthropists in smaller and medium large ways. And whereas through the power of philanthropy, the Community Foundation also converts residents around a critical community issues and efforts, strengths and nonprofits in our region, and works with partners to root and accelerate community wealth through the local investments in business and projects that align with its mission and long-term community outcomes. And whereas together we can build a stronger Hudson, Reno County, and Kansas to improve future by creating community legacies to benefit all residents. And it is appropriate to set aside time to recognize and value impact of the philanthropy and community foundations of the state, regional and local levels to invest partnerships and leaderships they curate across Kansas communities. Therefore, I, Steve Garza, Mayor of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim November 12th through the 18th, 2021 as Community Foundation Week, and in Hutchinson encourage all citizens to recognize and support the impact that philanthropy and community foundations, their volunteers and donors have statewide.
Thank you.
Oh, baby.
We filled that one full of that word philanthropy that we
Yes.
also stumble over. Thank you for that, Mayor Garza and
Yes.
Council, for the proclamation and recognizing Hutchinson Community Foundation in this way. We have been successful in our community and for our community for 32 years because we had a group of founders who had a vision and said this community is generous, that we can establish an endowed savings account, if you will, for our community, and that we need that for the future generations. We've been successful because people here are generous and they give. They give of their time, talents, and treasure, as Tanya mentioned in her prayer. And we have given away $92.7 million in 32 years in this county. Our assets continue to grow because of that generosity, and we think we will continue to see that. I wanted to make sure you know that WSU has done a study that shows in this decade, the projection is that $3 billion of wealth will transfer from the oldest generation to the next in our county.
Wow.
$3 billion in Reno County alone of total wealth is going to transfer from one generation to the next. And the Community Foundation is very aware of that and aware that when that transfer of wealth happens, not all of it will stay in Reno County because the heirs who inherit that wealth sometimes live in other counties, other states, other countries, and it leaves our community. And so we are trying to capture it, if you will, a portion of it, and are asking very directly, and I'm asking everyone in here, to consider leaving a percentage of final estates, whether you're a wealthy person or a person of more modest means, to leave 5% of whatever it is you have at the end of your life to the things that you care about here in the community. 5% of a small estate is still 5%. 5% of a large estate is still 5%, obviously. And when we ask people to leave 5%, they respond very positively and say, well, we can do that. We can give back to this community that helps raise our children, build our businesses, helped us accumulate our wealth. We can give back 5%. And they're doing so. Sometimes it goes through the community. Sometimes it goes straight to churches, favorite organizations. But however it gets to those organizations, it will make a difference for future generations. That's that capture of the transfer of wealth. And the Community Foundation is committed not just to capturing it, but rooting it here, investing it in people, places, and ideas that will keep that wealth in this community so that our kids, our grandkids, and future generations will really feel the difference and enjoy their lives here in Reno County. I brought you a report. I'd like you to look at it in your free time. This is a new way that the Community Foundation is rooting wealth by investing 5% of our assets, not as grants, but as loans and investments in important projects that need to happen here in Hutchinson and Reno County. Most recently, it's been in a downtown boutique hotel. It was in rural broadband, in our local internet service provider, in a child care center, and in some workforce housing here in Hutchinson almost a decade ago. So there's some examples in here. I'd like you to look at it and think about community philanthropy and what a difference it makes here in Hutchinson. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Aubrey,
Yes.
I wanted to add one thing. You talked about what makes our community foundation successful, and just wanted to add that another variable to that has been your leadership for more than a decade, and you've really just set our local community foundation apart from others in the philanthropy industry because of your vision and commitment and
Thanks.
ability to include the voices of everyone. So thank you for your leadership.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5A, oral communications from the audience.
Good morning. My name's Betty Taylor, and I'm president of the Reno County Historical Society, and I'm joined by Michael Abels, who's executive director.
Yes, thank you. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us this morning. This is more of just an informational giving opportunity. We wanted to give everybody an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what we at Stratica is doing for our community, not only for our community, but for our region. We, last year, a small committee got together and we wanted to do something for our community and especially for our staff to build morale. Last year was tough for everybody. And it was especially tough for nonprofits. And last year the morale was very, very low. And so what we did as a small committee was to basically develop a light display underground. Everybody's been at the Salt Museum, at least at one time or another. However, what you see is there's salt, there's more salt, there's more salt.
And it's dark.
And there's dark. And so what we decided to do is basically lighten things up a little bit and basically give a little bit more sharing, a little bit more caring, a little bit more light in a dark spot. And so what we did this year is that we just enhanced that opportunity. And in fact, I want to give all of the county commissioners and mayor an opportunity to come, city council,
City.
sorry, excuse me, I deal with both. So, but the city council here and the mayor to an opportunity to come underground and see that light display for yourself. I was joking with Betty just a little while ago that we kind of give Clark Griswold a run for his money. And essentially, again, enhancing the lights in a dark spot. And, you know, as we are coming out of this pandemic, we hope that we're able to continue to see the growth and expansion and, again, change an environment in which everybody has seen at least once. And, again, that's the growth that we've seen. Since 2021, we've actually seen our numbers improve because of the fact is that we're changing, we're improving. And, again, that is a reflection not only of our organization, but also of our community. We're improving and we're enhancing what we're doing. So again, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak on, today, but again, give everybody here an opportunity to come and see that change in a dark spot, that light for yourself. Betty, would you have anything to add?
Well, I just thought I'd add that it did dawn on us last year that down there you don't have to wait for the sun to go down to turn on the lights. So it was a small effort last year, but
Yes.
I think very successful.
I do too.
Our visitors, of course, they were not very numerous. We had several, but not the numbers that we, of course, wanted. This year, things are improving. We're hoping to get back on track. I think
right.
our numbers this last month are very, very good.
Yes, very, very good. In fact, we
had a
compete.
big tour the other day when
That's
I was
right.
down there. But we have lit up several, I don't know how many yards or,
Well, one of my staff members actually was doing the math. We have over 50,000 lights underground. Yes.
and just want everyone to come down and enjoy. And if you'd contact Michael for the members here,
Absolutely.
he would arrange a complimentary tour.
Okay,
So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
thank you.
And Michael, will that be on throughout the rest of the year?
Oh, good question. Okay, so it's on now until January 9th.
Okay.
Okay, so if you don't get it before the holidays, we give you that opportunity even after the holidays.
Well, and we might mention the ore car. We have an ore car that's decorated that you can get up in and have your photo taken, and you can put that on Christmas cards.
Okay, great. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Chief?
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Hooper, Chief of Police. I just want to take a couple minutes to update the council on the renovations, the final touches to the renovations to the LEC. The sidewalks are completed and they went in this last week, and the paving in the parking lot is done. We've completed a lot of our finishing touches on the lobby, which is kind of the entrance into into the police department. We got our welcome sign up in there. We have our 2 walls of honor in there. One wall is to honor the previous chiefs of police for the agency, and the other wall is to honor all the retirees and everybody that's retired from the agency. We know we don't have them all pictures, so I would encourage that if anybody has a retiree from the police department that we're unaware of, to get a hold of us. We'll make sure that we get their picture up. The memorial statue for the lobby was supposed to be completed in October, but now they're anticipating, because of all the other supply chain issues, we won't probably get that until February. And so once we get that in, then we will be working on a open house sometime probably next spring. I did also want to take this opportunity to announce a project that we're going to be undertaking. It'll go out to the media after I announced it to you all this morning. And that front space and that lobby of the police department, I think you guys knew that one of my goals was to open that up to the public, make it a welcoming and inviting space, to honor the tradition of the police department, but make it feel like an environment that people can come and they're welcome and it's open. And so one of my ideas that we're going to undertake is we want to solicit local artists, and we're going to do some murals inside that front lobby. And so we're going to work with the Art Design Council, put some information out through them to seek out local artists that can come in, give us their vision of what those murals could look like, and then we'll select out of there to have some local artists do some painting in the front lobby of the police department, which I really think will give us that down-home feel. It won't look so institutionalized, look like a police department. It'll look like a welcoming, inviting space. And so we're going to undertake that here in the next couple months or so. The last thing is that I know that none of the council members really have had an opportunity to come over and see the police department. You all were instrumental in making that happen, and it's your police department, and especially with Councilmember Dave Lyon and Solden. I know you're going off to city council, and I'd really like you guys to have an opportunity to come over and see that. So be happy to give you a private tour. If you just want to call me or set a date or a time, I'd be happy to get you over there and walk you through. And I think that I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish with the funds that you provided to us. So
Fantastic.
thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good, Chief.
I had a question on that, though.
Yes,
What is the implication for the funding for these added murals?
We'll just I have some donation funds, or that'll come out of our regular budget funds, but I'm anticipating that, I don't know what that will be, whether a local artist will donate their time or whether they'll charge us, but I have some donation funds that I can use for that.
Okay.
We've had a generous donor the last couple years that has donated $25,000 both to the police department and the fire department for certain projects inside the agency, and I still have some of that funding available that I can use for that.
I just know that with budgets being tight, I mean, ours, just be mindful that if there's any other place the money would be more well spent.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. My name's Marla Booyer, 605 Ottawa Drive. I'm here actually as representative of Hutch Rec Foundation. I serve as the vice president of the board. And I just wanted to present and request your support of a project we've been working on. It is bringing Hutch flag license plates to our community. You may have seen this in Wichita as the most recent one I can think of. And I do have a mock-up if you'd allow me to share it with you.
Thanks.
Okay, so some of the things that we've put into place to hopefully set this up for success are we have reached out to all the local delegates here in Hutch that go to Topeka and obtain their support. We also have worked with Jason Probst, our representative, who has agreed to work with the legislature there to help with the revising of this bill. And so I believe he'd like to start working on that in January. We have learned that we have to be able to pre-sell 150 of these. So we wanted to get the word out as soon as possible so that people can get excited as we are about it. And all the proceeds to these plates will stay in our community and support all of our parks and recs. They'll go to the Hutch Rec Foundation, so we will manage all of the project and the proceeds and make sure that that's exactly where they go.
And they're what, Marla, $50 a year?
They are in Wichita, but we're setting ours at 30, or proposing that they be at 30.
Okay.
Marla, explain this to me. These are tags that go on your car, right?
Yes.
So how do you do this? I mean, we receive a tag from the state on a sticker that goes on our tags, right? So our number from our tag we have now will go on this? Is that how?
No, when you go to the tag and license plate place, when you ask for this, you will receive this actual plate. And this will go on there. And then when you renew every year, you'll get your sticker that will go on here.
I understand. So what happens if we already bought a tag, and this has got to pass all the legislators first,
Yes.
right? And once that happens, then we take our tag. We're not up for a tag yet, so we just go up there and they'll give us a new tag.
Yes.
And is it going to be the same number or just something different? Or?
It'll have to start like this, hopefully.
Mhm.
I'm one of the first.
Uh-huh.
So it'd be like 001,
Oh,
02,
gotcha,
03.
gotcha. Okay.
Where do we go for the pre-sales? Is that on the Hutch Rec Foundation website, or?
So we have to figure that out as the bill gets
Oh, okay.
in process, and we'd probably have to work that out. I would imagine it would have to go through current tags, but we just kind of have to wait for direction on that.
Okay. And you said did you also reach out to Representative Wagner for?
Yeah, all of
support?
the delegates
Okay.
have expressed support for that.
Oh, fantastic. This is a really neat project.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I could say it was my idea, but it wasn't. I just brought it here.
You're not going to have personalized tags with this,
I don't think we can. I think we have to stick with these numbers, and this is also subject to whatever the bill states that we have to do. This is just kind of what we kind of use the Wichita one for direction, so it really depends on if this meets their requirements.
Okay.
So we may get some direction that we might have to tweak this a little bit.
Do you know if 100% of the proceeds go, or just a portion?
We're working on finding that out too. We don't, I'm guessing it's not 100%, but we don't know exactly what it is.
Great.
Am I missing anything?
Okay.
So we pay this one-time fee of $30, and we won't pay that no more, right?
Oh, and it's at renewal too.
Okay. So that's plus the tag fee that we get from the state, correct?
Yeah, it's $30 a year or whatever.
$30 a year plus your taxes for your
Gotcha.
car.
Yes. Okay.
It's just like any of the other personalized
Okay.
plates.
Yes.
It'd just be a Hutchinson.
They currently have
personalized plate.
K-State ones, WSU
Oh,
ones,
gotcha.
things like that. Any other question?
No, it sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I actually had it's not particular to this, but if you're working with the state already with license plates, I would wonder if you could also, during the same time, work with anybody who is a National Guard who has served and became a veteran. They're having trouble getting veteran tags in Kansas because of the way that the law is current, like the way that the words are structured. And I'm wondering if you could maybe also talk, while you're in talks with that, or get me some more information on that. But it might be something that the Community Foundation could also look into for veterans, because a National Guard who has served in active duty for some amount of time is actually federally labeled a veteran. But in Kansas, we won't give them veteran tags, at least not here in Reno County.
Yes, so I'm a representative of the Hutch Rec Foundation,
Yeah.
but I'm also a president of the Vieira Honors Foundation, who's
That's
bringing the
why-
flags here.
mhm.
So I can maybe work on that from that.
From that, yeah, I knew that you were doing something with the veterans too, so I figured if you could, since you're already working in the license plate area and figuring all that stuff
I can
out,
see
that
what
might
I
be
can find
something
out.
that you could look into, because I know that I've sent an email to some of our legislators about it, but I haven't got a response back yet.
Okay, great. I can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Marla, while you're here, do you mind, I saw you had a booth at the
Yes.
chamber event,
I did.
and you created a foundation so that if people have a veteran in their family, they can get a banner on Main Street. Can you talk about that?
Sure. It's Veteran Honor Banners. It's for the Vieira Honors Foundation. And beginning on, I believe it was 2 Fridays ago, I can't remember the exact date, we started selling them on our website, vierahonorfoundation.org. And you can go online, order a banner for your loved one who is active or a vet, and they will be flown downtown from Memorial Day through 4th of July. That is just for this year. Our goal is to actually have them in the future be hung during the actual Veterans Day, but they would be actually from September to November in the future. We're just working with the city right now. The city, the chamber, and United Way have been awesome partners to us. We're a grassroots startup, and so we needed lots of direction, and they really walked beside us and have been so helpful in providing all the resources that we needed and support that we needed to get this far. So we're very excited about the partnerships.
Is this flag gonna look different, the flag that we buy? Is it the American flag?
No, it's a banner. I wish I could show you. I have it on my phone, but it's about a 3 foot by 2 foot banner that flies on the light poles. And it has a photo of your vet,
cool.
whether it's a family or friend.
Cool.
And it has their name, rank, the years they served, if they served in any conflicts, and then they'll also be featured on our website.
Cool.
They currently are doing this in Wichita. It started in our state in Emporia about 7 years ago, and has just been slowly rolling out into towns throughout the state. But it is a nationwide project.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Okay.
Okay, item 6, consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Iris Carvalho?
Yes.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 7A, consider ordinance authorizing issuance of taxable multifamily housing revenue bonds.
Tyler, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. Angela Richard, Director of Finance. I have Tyler Ellsworth on the phone with us, and Dominic for Gilmore and Bell is in the audience as well. As a reminder, back in February of 2020, we issued a resolution of intent to issue revenue bonds for the Commerce Garden Apartments No. 2 project. This was for the addition of additional apartment complexes. So Mars Investors LLC is here to request to issue an ordinance which would allow them to issue multifamily housing revenue bonds for this project. The project is almost complete, and they are ready to issue the bonds for financing. As a reminder of what this means, with typical revenue bonds, the city will become the leaseholder, and Mars Investors LLC will be the tenant. They are responsible for all payments of the revenue bonds and all costs of issuance. We have no obligation to pay this debt, and we have no obligation to pay any other expenses related to the property. Also, they will apply for a property tax exemption, and we have already authorized a payment in lieu of tax agreement with them. It will need to be reissued because the name of the company has changed from Commerce Gardens Apartments to Mars Investors LLC. So Tyler Ellsworth with Kutek Rock and staff have reviewed all the documents attached, and we recommend approving the ordinance and authorizing the mayor to sign all related documents. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So even though we're not on the hook for paying the bonds, we're still the one holding the bonds, correct? And how does that go against our bond rating? Because I know somebody like me can probably only get, $200,000 in financing. So if I have a loan that I get for $100,000, that only leaves me in the future to probably get another $100,000. Because you have kind of like an availability How does that equivalent into our bond rating and our ability to bond in the future as far as our cap goes?
It does not affect our cap for our bonding ability. It does not go against us for our credit rating. We are the issuer, but it doesn't impact us in any way like that.
It doesn't impact us in any way.
No.
Okay. My second question is, normally these kind of things are used for manufacturing, commercial. I know historically in the past, this kind of is used for job creation. How many jobs are created from this?
I am not sure about that. I don't.
I believe we used IRBs for the alley too, didn't we?
Yes, there are different types of revenue bonds. This one specifically is
Taxable.
the
Yeah.
multifamily housing revenue
Housing
bonds.
revenue.
Yeah.
We also issue industrial revenue bonds, which
Yeah.
would be the companies that you're talking about there as well. So there are different types. I think there are also health-related, like health industry-related revenue bonds as well. But I can't speak to how many jobs were created by this. I don't know if Dominic would have that either.
I think it's more, is this more a matter of providing a needed service in our community than?
Yes, and Dominic can speak to that as well.
Yes, thank you. Dominic Eck with Gilmore and Bell here on behalf of Mars Investors. You're correct. Sometimes industrial revenue bonds are utilized to incentivize job creation or retain jobs or promote an industry. In this case, the incentive is not to create jobs and promote an industry, but rather to provide this needed sector of housing.
Would the needed sector of housing help people in the employment? How much people have you successfully had into the program that have left the program and been on their feet and have joined the workforce? What is your success rate?
I don't think we track who leaves the program to go into the workforce. But I will say that all units are leased up. 3 of the 4 buildings are ready to go. There's tenants starting to move in next week. There's been a waiting list. All units will be full up, by the first quarter of next year once the final building comes online, hopefully at the end of this year. So I think clearly there was a need for this type of housing in there, and there has been a need we've seen it across the whole state where affordable housing for workforce is needed everywhere, and this helps to fill that void in
How
this
many
community.
people in that program are in the workforce full-time?
So the program is based upon
Because if
income.
you're saying you're needing affordable housing for the workforce, how many people in the program are in the workforce full-time?
I'm saying that statewide, if you look at, kind of the data and the numbers, it will tell you that the state of Kansas has workforce housing shortages. It's a big Department of Commerce.
Does the program help put people into the
Well, the
workforce?
program helps to provide for housing for certain levels of income for people, and helps to provide certain more affordable price points for them. It does not.
What's your mixed rate on far as the affordable? Do you have people that are working full-time that just have like a minimal reduced rent that are occupying any of their buildings?
I'm not sure whether we have data on part-time versus full-time employment of the tenants. It's an income-based.
I want to take a minute here if I can interrupt you. Sorry about that, sir.
No, it's okay.
I've got a little history on the Commerce Gardens, and I want to go back a little bit. So I think the council and the public have an appreciation for the project we're talking about. Back in the mid-'70s, Commerce Gardens was built as a 110-unit workforce housing initiative that, and I've tracked the data for years and years and years, that it typically would average an occupancy rate of about 90 to 95% in providing workforce affordable housing to this community. And it has certainly done that, and it has excelled at that. Back in the early 2000s, we had a terrible, terrible flood that basically the Commerce Gardens housing project was devastated, and it was flooded. And I was actually on site, going through the project unit by unit by unit, and we had to relocate people that actually resided in Commerce Gardens itself. And fortunately, along came the Cantonese family out of Wichita, who have numerous housing unit complexes in the community. And they stepped forward and actually acquired the Commerce Gardens project and basically rebuilt that entire complex to modern-day housing units. If you drive by Commerce Gardens today, you would not recognize how it is transformed from what it once was, because it was a 40-year-old unit that was deteriorating. And then this next phase, I believe there's 48 units that were, I believe, recently built and completed, and that's the project we're talking about today. So thanks to the Cantonese family, thanks to the vision back in the 70s that we needed continued workforce housing, and I can assure you that it has met and exceeded its goal as a project in providing affordable workforce housing to the community. So it's a terrific project. The Cantonese have been great stewards of the project itself, and they continually invest, and we're willing to risk this investment to build these additional 48 units. So obviously I'm a strong proponent of Commerce Gardens and moving forward with this project.
Any other questions? Okay. When I first became a council member, this is gonna be real quick. People used to tell me the Commerce Gardens and so forth is free housing for the poor people.
No.
What I've understood right now today, just listening, as long as I stay on this council, I understand a little bit more, is that it's a slide rule as how much you make everybody pays, correct? Correct?
Yes, they do, yes.
And it's a slide rule, what they pay is compared to what they offer. It's not free housing, it's just everybody
Called
pays.
Section 8 Housing,
Okay.
Housing and Urban Development Program. That's through Section 8.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you, that's what I
Thank
wanted to
you.
know, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any more to stay? All right.
Well, I would move to approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of taxable multifamily housing revenue bonds, Series 2021, for the Commerce Gardens Apartment 2 project, and authorize the mayor to sign the ordinance and all related documents.
Second.
Iris Carvalho?
Yes.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
No.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 7B, consider ordinance authorizing the Washington Bicycle Boulevard to be financed by general obligation bonds.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. You have approved the Washington Bicycle Boulevard project, and now we need to determine how to finance that. It has been budgeted to bond that. However, we do have another project that ran under budget, and I am proposing that we use the remainder of that project's bonded money to fund the Washington Bicycle Boulevard project. The project was the zoo electrical upgrade project, and from what I'm told, the estimates just ran higher than what it actually took. So instead of that extra money going back into the bond and interest fund and sitting there, I'm proposing that we use it and reduce the cost of financing to the Washington Bicycle Boulevard project. So this will give us enough money to finance what has been approved. If just as a caution, if there are any change orders, we might have to figure out how to finance the rest of it. But I think it's better to move forward with this and use this in a useful way towards this project. So are there any questions?
What's the difference?
Are you saying like the difference of how to fund the rest of Washington? Yes. We have $58,500 that was transferred in a prior year budget that came from the general fund. So between that and a portion that will be paid by the stormwater fund for those types of repairs that are related to stormwater, and this $50,000, we will be able to fund our portion, and then the remainder will be paid by Kdot for that grant agreement.
Well, thank you, Angela, for always looking out for ways to save money. I appreciate your foresight on that. If there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move to approve the ordinance authorizing the Washington Bicycle Boulevard be financed by general obligation bonds and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris DeCarlo?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Item 7C, consider ordinance amending Chapter 19 of the City Code.
Good morning, Council. Joel Davenport, Water Wastewater Superintendent for the city. Before you is Chapter 19 amendments to the pretreatment ordinance for the city. This will bring it into alignment with EPA requirements of CFR 40 CFR 403. In reality, this does not affect the city at all. We currently have 7 pretreatment customers where we, 2 are what's called categorical because they have metals processing. The other 3, 4, or 5, excuse me, are loading with what we call biochemical oxygen demand and total suspended solids. So EPA actually implemented this about 15 years ago and is now requiring all cities to come into compliance with that. We are audited by the KDHE and EPA on our pretreatment, and it also affects our what we call our biosolids. So the basic premise of this is that we don't have metals or other pollutants that would affect our biosolids that we place on our farmland outside of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
So recommend the amendments. Basically, the changes it gives us is a right to enter and copy records for our customers, and it also defines what our limits are. And if you look in the table, it's what we call maximum allowable industrial loading and maximum allowable headworks loading, which is the headworks is where all the sewage comes into the wastewater treatment plant. So we are recommending the approval of the amendments and the mayor to sign.
I want to say thank you for your service to the community and keeping everybody's water as safe as you can. And as far as, sorry, I'm trying to get to it. I guess you clarified it. Sorry, I'm not on the right spot. But this is basically to just bring us in alignment with the EPA as far as water safety standards goes for our sewage and metal.
Pretreatment standards
For
water treatment. So pretreatment is any industry, and there's definitions, and the definitions are in the current ordinance. There's a few additional definitions that were added to it, but it's basically what we call a significant industrial user who uses more than 25,000 gallons a day, or they fall in the categorical standards of metals. And like I said, we only have 2 of those in our city. The main purpose of this is to allow cities to streamline the process of permitting. With our only 7 industries here in this city, it's really, it's not going to affect us at all because we already do everything that is listed in here in the amendments.
So you already do what's already, like, what is exactly changing in the ordinance? Is it anything you put in layman's terms for the people to understand?
It's hard.
Yeah,
Put it in layman's terms.
I was just trying to build questions to give the public
Yeah.
maybe what is exactly changing, or for just a change in our amendment, and we've already had the practices.
It does not change anything for us.
Okay.
Other than it defines what our industrial loading can be by a poundage, and we're way under those requirements right now.
Okay.
So, and it, like I say, this is only for the pretreatment portion, so industries can pretreat their sewage and wastewater before they come to us. So we have some significantly large pretreatment customers, and but we already inspect them every year. We already permit them. We already go through all the aspects that the amendments show in here. I did want to also recognize Elise Chu from the on our staff. She's our water quality coordinator, and she's the one that's actually put this together and working with both KDHE and EPA. It's been about a 2-year process in getting this accomplished, mainly because of COVID. EPA was slow on us.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody else have any comments? Or?
No.
Okay. Motion to approve ordinance amending Chapter 19 of the Storm Sewer, Sanitary Sewer, and Sewer Disposal of the Code of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I second that.
Iris Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 7D, consider ordinance amending Chapter 27 of the City Code.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. Ryan Vietlook, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Hutchinson. Before you this morning are a series of amendments to Chapter 27, the zoning ordinance of the City Code. I will kind of break them out into 2 separate sections because there were 2 different actions that the Planning Commission took. This came actually as a directive of City Council. City Council received some comments from a property owner about 2 months ago with some difficulties that they were having in a development project. Staff spoke with the property owner and did some research and came up with what we thought was some compromises, ran them through the Planning Commission as is outlined in Section 324 of Chapter 27. And one of their duties of the Planning Commission is to review the zoning regulations, consider any needed amendments, hold the public hearing. Those items have all been done, and make recommendations to City Council. So the Planning Commission held a study session on this on October 12th. They had a public hearing, the Development Review Committee reviewed this on October 26th, and the Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 9th. They did recommend approval of the amendments to sections 27406, subsection 27, 29, and 31 with a vote of 8-0. They did recommend denial of amendments of sections 27202, 503, and 907 with a vote of 8-0. And I'll get into exactly what those are. So the first part of this is looking at what our ordinance says about what hard surface or paving is. So our ordinance currently defines hard surface as any permanently applied asphalt or concrete surface. There is an exclusion in that excludes asphalt millings with or without slurry seal. Furthermore, in 27403, we have a requirement that existing developed properties, actually not a requirement, this is an allowance, but existing and developed properties where an existing parking lot is unpaved, we do allow for that to be paved with asphalt millings with slurry seal rather than asphalt or concrete. That was done during some of the major changes in 2018 where we were trying to better facilitate development of infill lots. And it was one of those things of if it raised the level of where you had to actually improve your parking, we did allow for people to use this slurry seal rather than going with a full asphalt or concrete. Other places our ordinance speaks about this is under boat RV storage. It does state that it has to be asphalt or concrete within commercial zones, so there is nothing that talks about asphalt millings or anything like that. It has to be asphalt or concrete. And then furthermore, in 27701, our parking requirements, we do require that all parking areas and driveways to and from parking areas shall be paved with asphalt or concrete. We do have an allowance that areas that are for the storage of equipment, fleet, or overflow parking can be paved with all-weather dust-free material. So gravel is typically what you will see in that. So a couple of changes of what staff basically is wanting to do. would be that we would allow for asphalt millings with slurry seal in these 3 uses. And the reason that staff chose these are generally low traffic generating uses. They usually have lower parking standards. You don't have a lot of customer traffic in and out. It's usually people who, in all these cases, they're storing an item or storing something, and so you're not having that traffic in and out like you would have at a retail or a restaurant or something like that. So basically what we would allow is for self-storage for boat and RV, and then inoperable vehicle storage. We would allow for asphalt millings with slurry seal to be approved paving material for parking areas. We would not allow for gravel asphalt millings without slurry seal, so you would still have to have some sort of a hard surface, just would not have to be traditional asphalt or concrete. So a little bit of analysis of why staff is recommending this. So the zoning ordinance has required all off-street parking to be paved since at least 2011. 2018, as I mentioned, the ordinance was amended to clarify that all weather and dust-free was only permitted for the storage of equipment, fleet, or overflow parking. In 2018, boat and RV storage was moved into its own use with its own design requirements. Staff, as we do with most of our zoning, all of our zoning ordinance recommendations, we do review our peer cities across the state as well as just other cities. Pretty much all cities across Kansas do require that parking areas are paved. There is some exceptions for industrial or low density residential. And if you look at their definitions, paving has been defined as hard surface, all weather, asphalt, or concrete. Asphalt millings are typically used for temporary parking as well as low traffic uses such as single family residential driveways. And the reason for that is because oftentimes you have issues with quality, longevity, and the ability to withstand higher traffic loads and turning movements. And so for all of those reasons, that is why staff thinks that yes, it's a reasonable request. And we are looking at it in more of our lower traffic areas. So you wouldn't see this at Dillon's or Walmart or a restaurant where you have that high traffic impact. This really is going to be for those lower traffic generating uses. So I could pause here because we've kind of split this up, or I could continue to go. It's up to y'all.
I did have a few questions. Was the initial request for millings only without the slurry seal?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was or not.
Okay.
Yeah. But the original conversation was that we do allow for millings with slurry seal throughout our ordinance and in places, so this would just be an extension of that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I will just kind of continue here. The second part of the request was for us to look at our screening fence requirements. So there was a request from the property owner to allow for chain link with slats as an allowed screening material. So currently our ordinance defines solid fences as a fence of approved material, and there is an exclusion once again of excluding chain link with slats, which obscures at least 90% of the vision. Boat and RV storage, we have a requirement that storage areas shall be screened from the public right of way and from adjacent residential zoning districts by a solid 6-foot tall fence. So once again, we go back to that definition and we would exclude chain link with slats. We also have several other places in the ordinance where we require screening fences. We require screening fences for manufactured home parks, commercial and industrial uses within a PUD. We don't have any PUDs in the city, but just a quick planning thing, that's a plan unit development. Typically you'll see those in like master plan developments where the current ordinance may not really work with what the developer wants to do. So they basically work with staff and the city to write an ordinance for that development itself. We don't have those, but we do have that as an allowance in our ordinance. RV parks, screening of recycling and trash, industrial uses adjacent to residential. One of the screening options for screening non-residential uses from residential is a 6-foot tall solid fence, outdoor storage, and then salvage yards and motor vehicle graveyards. So staff is recommending denial of this, but we did look into kind of what would be a proposed change. So the first thing would be that we would strike the limitation of chain link with slats from the definition of solid fence. we would expand our administrative adjustment section to allow one of the items that somebody could get an administrative adjustment for would be a screening fence with chain link with slats on a property that's adjacent to residentially used or zoned property. I apologize, that last one should not be there, that got carried over. Then here's kind of the main thing. We said, okay, if the city council wants to go with chain link with slats, the staff has recommended the following design requirements. So it would be that chain link with slats, chain link fencing with slats with a privacy factor of at least 90% could be used to satisfy the solid fence requirements for screening. Chain link fencing with slats would have to consist of what we call double wall wing slats with interlocking wings. And basically that is to prevent, and I'll show you a slide here on the next page, but if you've ever seen fences with slats, depending on the angle that you look, you may have as much as 75% of whatever's behind the fence visible. And so the interlocking wings and the kind of block that. So you get this overlap look that really gets you close to that 90%. The use of slats without interlocking wings and double walls would be prohibited. Slats would only be able to be the following colors: dark green, brown, black, or tan, once again, to kind of blend in with the surrounding area. Chain link with slats would not be permitted in the front or street side yard along state highway, arterial, or collector roadways. That is honestly an aesthetic decision. Chain link with slats are not very common, and I'll get into that here in a second. And then chain link with slats that are screened material adjacent to residentially zoned property or used property would have to require the approval of an administrative adjustment. That would allow the neighboring property owners to have an opportunity to provide comment on it and be notified if the neighboring property owner was wanting to use this as a screening material. So a little bit of analysis about this. So in our looking back at the history, since 2013, only 2 variance requests regarding screening fences have been submitted. In 2013, it was for a motor vehicle graveyard. That actually did not get a variance. That went through City Council as a special use permit, and they were allowed to do, I believe, chain link with slats. And the reason was because there was already existing chain link fence there, and that was done as part of the special use permit through Council. And then in 2020, there was an industrial user that actually requested not to put any type of screening up because of how their property was designed. Most of the industrial use of the storage was actually behind a building outside of the view of the general public. So since at least 2011, the zoning ordinance has directly stated that chain link with slats is not considered a solid fence. I looked at our peer communities. I consider our peer communities Salida, Wichita, Hayes, Dodge City, Garden City, and none of those communities allow for chain link with slats. Some of the concerns about chain link with slats are maintenance, longevity, and actual screening ability. The maintenance issue, it becomes an enforcement issue for staff of if a chain link slat or if a slat is broken, we technically would need to go out. Do enforcement, send a letter, all of that. It's a lot with our limited staff that we have. And then finally, really just a review of zoning ordinances across Kansas and the United States show that allowing slats as a screening material really is an outlier. I looked even in some industrial communities, places up near Kansas City, places down in Texas. Really, most communities don't allow for this anymore. As a matter of fact, the only one I could find was a county out in Virginia, and that's actually where I got a lot of the design standards from because they're grappling with that, and it was a rural county out in Virginia. So, and then here at the top, the picture, you could see here's just an example of more traditional slats versus on the right is what you would see more than 90% opaque blocking of the vision. And as you can see, the brown ones, depending on your angle, you could see quite a bit in there. And so those interlocking wings and those double wings help prevent that.
So they would be permitted under these revisions to have
The
slats
white.
on the right?
The white.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, staff is recommending a motion of approval for the first set, the asphalt millings with slurry seal. Staff is recommending denial of the second request, the chain link with slats as a screening material, and that mimics what the Planning Commission recommended as well. So that I will pause for any questions you may have.
Okay. Now, the chain link, we're adding the white ones you showed on the second page. The white ones, they weren't before allowed, or
They are not allowed. That is correct. You cannot do.
they were not allowed. But this, now, are we allowing it now?
That is the proposal that
I-
something like that would be allowed.
Can I interject? Basically, is the proposal that you actually denied includes all of those provisions with the double link, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for you,
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
So it's in the proposal but that proposal is being recommended denial. But in that proposal, wasn't the arterial still needing to be solid?
Yes,
And it would just be the side streets?
It would be as it is written, is that if you have any sort of street frontage that would require screening along an arterial, a state highway, or a collector, that you would not be able to use chain link with slats as a screening material. You would have to do what we allow now, which is like a
Yeah,
vinyl
so
or a wood fence.
What was the main reason for the denial on that? Even if we're still within that proposal, saying that the artillery streets still need to be solid.
Really what it came down to, and what staff's recommendation and what the Planning Commission looked at, was the fact that we really would be an outlier on this. There are really not many communities that even allow this as a screening material. And then also the concerns about maintenance, longevity, and then the staffing and administration of enforcing to ensure that those slats don't become an issue.
Ryan, is the applicant here?
Well, the applicant's the city in this, but the property owner who made the
Yeah.
original comment, yes, Mr. Yes, he is here, Mr. Hildebrand.
Can we hear from him, please?
Good morning, Council,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Mayor. Kip Hildebrand, 3103 Princeton Drive. First off, I'd like to say thank you for the city staff for working on this project for me. I appreciate the compromise that we came to on the first part of this. Again, I'll state the same thing that I stated at the Planning Commission public hearing. I do agree mostly with the Planning Commission's change regarding the fencing. The only part of that I don't agree with is, number one, their denial of changing that. Number two is the arterial part of that ordinance. My property does run along 4th Street out on East 4th, close to 4th and Halsted, near the Dillon's Distribution Center. It's a heavily industrial area. It might be zoned commercial, but it's really heavily industrial. And, it's a mixture of slats and wood fence and concrete. You have your choice of what you see when you go out there. What I'm proposing is a double wall slatted fence with the fingers. It has a 25-year warranty from the manufacturer against fading, cracking. The city staff mentioned the fact of maintenance, but any building material that you use is going to require maintenance over a period of time, and it really just lies on the property owner to maintain that. And out there where I'm proposing to put this project, there's a lot of people that have neglected their properties. I'm actually wanting to put something in there that is, in my opinion, is attractive and adds to the area. I will say I already do have a 6-foot chain link fence surrounding the property. I know that financial reasons are not a reason to, are not a consideration of the Planning Commission, but it would be a great expense for me to take down that chain link fence and erect up something else when there's a simple solution such as the slats. And the slats that I'm proposing do offer the 90% blockage of view. This is a product that's offered through Railco Fence here in Hutchinson. I've worked directly with them on this entire fence while I've had this property. And I would just ask that you consider approving that section of the change to the ordinance. And I would also ask that you please consider or reconsider the wording regarding arterial streets, especially for, you know, this project that I have.
Can we bring Ryan back up?
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
clarifying that, Mr. Hildebrand. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Do you know if his current fence, would he have to take that down to even do the winged, or would the slats have the wings?
My understanding is I believe you can retrofit the slats into the chain link. They work with just a regular chain link fence.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any extra expense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the current property?
Yes,
area?
I'm aware of that.
I'm very aware.
Mhm.
How many artillery streets would be permitted under that to have to change the chain link fence? Is it just the 4th Street front, or is it also?
I believe the property that he has is a corner lot, but I believe the street that runs north-south is a residential street. So he would not have to, if this passed, he would not have to, he would be allowed to use chain link with slats along that street, just not along 4th, as that is considered an arterial.
And in that area, is it because it specifically being an RV that he can't use the slats that some of the other people surrounding him are?
No, my understanding is those slats may have been installed well before we had on the books that slats were not an allowed use. As I said, from my research, I was able to go back to about 2011. That is when we had a clear prohibition in our ordinance for chain link with slats as a screening material. So those fences, without actually going out and looking property by property, but my assumption would be that those were all installed well prior to 2011.
All right, I have one more question. for you.
Absolutely.
If we approve the as is with the arterial, is there a way for, say we approve that, and then he has, is there another way for him to get a variance on the arterial with that approval?
He could request a variance, but it would follow the same test as any variance, and so we'd have to see what is the hardship.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking because of the other slats around him.
It's a possibility.
Is there an
yeah.
avenue even? Would it make it easier? We do this, and then we also request a variance just for the arterial street. Could that be an avenue that he could go down?
I mean, he's certainly, like any property owner, would be allowed to, would be permitted to apply for a variance. It would be up to the Board of Zoning Appeals to make that determination if that request met the 5 factors under Kansas state law to grant a variance.
And what are those 5 factors?
I don't have them off the top of my head, but the main one that ends up that is the most difficult for folks to meet is the hardship, because under state law it's very clear that it cannot be a financial hardship. And then the other item is what is unique about the property itself that is not on any other type of property.
What kind of
around the area.
hardships?
The best example I can give is what a planning professor gave me, and it's called the castle in the swamp. So basically, this would be based on setbacks, but you have a piece of property that, let's say, is a majority of it's a swamp, and you want to build on it, but with where the location of the swamp is, you can't meet the setbacks. So that in of itself, that could be a hardship, is that you have a piece of property that you cannot use for really any use because there is something unique physically about the property. So in this case, what Mr. Hildebrand would be requesting, without obviously having a variance application, it would be difficult, but what it's oftentimes termed is it's a variance of convenience. So it's just it's easier for the applicant to go ahead, and he has a chain link fence just to continue the screening. That in of itself, the court has ruled, is not typically justification enough for a variance.
And with the Kansas state law and all that, can a council override he has to meet those?
The Board of Zoning Appeals is the one who makes the final determination on that, and then the appeal, if there is an appeal of it, it goes to district court. It does not go to city council. The Board of Zoning Appeals is basically a quasi judicial board. So they are basically acting very similar as almost like a court under state law. And so, yeah, it would go to district court. It would not come to city council. Your avenue, if you want to grant somebody relief on this, is to change the ordinance. That is what your
Okay.
your duty or responsibility as council is.
Ryan, I appreciate your patience
Sorry.
with all these process questions. I had one too.
Absolutely.
So if we change, and I also appreciate all the thought that you and the Planning Commission have put into this denial of this second one. If we change that, would that apply to the entire city?
Yes.
And so, okay, that's my concern. I would much rather do a variance, although yeah. So if we change it, give me an example of what might happen on like the 17th Street corridor or.
If somebody wanted to do screening, if this ordinance was passed and you all made a change to allow for it along arterial streets, you would have chain link with slats as a possible screening material along 17th or 30th or things like that.
But that's not the current ordinance. The current ordinance still has the arterial as solid. It would just be the side streets.
I know, I was just trying to find a way to help Mr. Hildebrand use what he already has. I can respect that it's very frustrating because the 4th Street corridor is, there's been a lot of disinvestment in that corridor. But I also respect that at some point you have to set higher standards or you're never going to get where you want. But it is very discouraging, I would think, as a property owner to have a much higher standard set on you than all the other properties adjacent simply because they are grandfathered in. So I wish we could find a way to make both work.
And our ordinance does state, I mean, at some point those fences will need to be repaired. If they are doing more than 50%, they will have to come into compliance with whatever the current standards are. So you know, that is the intent of kind of these nonconformities is, yes, you have a legal right to continue them, but at some point you have to come up to the standards that the city has set for the property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hildebrand, I got a question for you, sir, real quick. So, this is denies what you were asking for us to change or do something about, correct?
Correct.
But your front of the business is what you're gonna do. You've been working with the fencing company, correct?
Correct.
So, what you have now, he's gonna have to change the side of the street now, all right?
What he has out there now is a chain link fence.
Yes.
So if he wanted to do the use, our standards require that there has to be a solid screen against the public right of way. Now, with how our ordinance is currently written, he would have to do some sort of a wood or vinyl fence or something like that. The ordinance would allow chain link. The proposed ordinance would allow chain link with slats, but he would still have to do something else along 4th with what the proposal shows, which is the not allowing it along arterial streets.
I had, sorry,
Go ahead, go
I
ahead.
had one more
Go
question.
ahead.
And this is pertaining to the RV park. Are there any other instances where just the arterial needs to be solid and the rest can be slab?
I mean, there are several uses. I mean, if there's a storage yard or something like that, where it's visible from the street, it needs to be screened, and it would have to be screened with a solid fence. So yeah, that whole list that I provided
Yeah.
are all the places in the ordinance where
I'm
a
just-
solid screening fence would be required, and under our ordinance, typically the screening is based on if it's visible from the street.
Are there any, I guess what I'm saying is, so anything right now where the slat is allowed is what I'm asking.
No.
Because you just don't like slats?
We
Is
do
that
not
what's-
allow, our ordinance does not allow chain link with slats as a screening material. The only time
I see them everywhere is why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So
And-
if those
and
are
what
just
you're
all
seeing-
grandfathered?
What you're seeing is they're either grandfathered or somebody just put them up as a privacy fence,
Okay.
but they're not. Our prohibition with chain link with slats is using them as a screening material. People can put them in and use them as a privacy fence.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are folks around the city who have done that. But what we're talking about here is where we require a solid fence for screening purposes.
Okay.
The ordinance currently does not allow chain link with slats as a fencing material for that purpose.
I don't think that I think that the one that's been denied, I think it's an unreasonable one. It's got a lot of stuff put in there. I know that you're not satisfied with it, but I do feel like it's a good compromise because it does allow for a good portion to have that screening with the slats and then the artillery road to have I think there was a lot of consideration. And can we go over that motion again, the zoning amendment request for the ZA?
One real quick, that's the one thing that you got, do you know, does he have to change that side street, right?
The side street, he would not. It is
Okay.
not an arterial or a
Okay.
collector. I believe it's classified as a residential, so
Okay.
it would be fine.
I would just like to add one more thing.
Yeah.
They're saying that you can use a solid vinyl fence along arterials, but the slats would not be allowed. The products that the product that I'm proposing to use is essentially it's vinyl slats. It's the same exact material that the vinyl fencing is made out of. It's just made to retrofit a existing fence. So, I mean, there's, in my opinion, obviously I'm slanted, but there's not a whole lot of difference between a vinyl fence and what I'm proposing. And I have pictures available if anybody wants to see them, but
I would.
okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Before we go any further, can we go back and deal with the first part of this problem, which is changing the paving structure? I mean, we kind of hopped over it and jumped into the fencing, but let's settle that previous issue and then come back to this one. I mean, am I the only one who thinks it's logical?
I figured since it was recommended for approval, there wasn't much discussion.
Well, but you might as well get it off the calendar.
You want to put that in a motion?
Well, yeah. I will move to approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve amendments to sections 27-406B, 27-406B 29, and 27-406B 31 of Chapter 27 of the Hutchinson City Code. Approve the ordinance and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave Blank?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about the fencing.
Oh,
You have
can we
pictures?
see the pictures?
And what I've presented are sample materials of what the vinyl slats are made out of. Now, these are not the winged that provide the 90% that the city would require under the new proposed changes. But if you will notice on the materials that it does list that it has a 25-year warranty. I included some pictures of different uses that Railco has provided for me here locally of slats being used, as well as the page that I inserted those photos does have a picture of the slats with the wings in a chain link fence as well.
I guess I'll give you guys time to look at it, or can I start
Go ahead.
discussing?
Oh,
Okay. Can you just go over all of this once again? So
There's
that
there's
we
a
can be
lot,
re-
yes, I agree. I won't get into kind of the previous parts of where we're changing a few of the different uses, or the definition, all that. I'll go with what the design standards,
Okay.
what would be recommended, would be that chain link with slats would be a permitted solid fence material for screening, subject to the following. So the chain link fence with slats with a privacy factor of at least 90% may be used to satisfy the solid fence requirements for screening. Chain link fencing with slats shall consist of double-walled wing slats with interlocking wings, or the equivalent if approved by the zoning administrator. The use of slats without interlocking wings and double walls shall be prohibited. And the reason for that, the double walls gives it a little bit more structural rigidity. Typically, one of the issues that you have with chain link with slats, especially in Kansas winds, is that you don't have as much of a solid. So chain link, wind passes through a wood fence or something like that, the wind hits it, it doesn't really affect it. But when you've got kind of this undulating issue with the fence, you can get cracking, you can get a lot of the maintenance issues that you see with slats. So the double wall slats add a little bit more rigidity to that. Slats shall only utilize the following colors: dark green, brown, black, and tan. Once again, that is to have them so they kind of blend in and look similar to what you would see of a vinyl fence or a wood fence. Chain link fencing with slats would not be prohibited in the front or street side yard along state highway, arterial, or collector roadways. And then the use of chain link with slats as a screening material adjacent to a residentially zoned or used property shall require the approval of an administrative adjustment under section 27503 of this ordinance.
The only thing he can do is change the ordinance at this time because it is a state, right? It's a state that.
I mean, he can apply for variance. The
Right.
Board of Zoning Appeals hears that, makes the determination. Staff is only just a recommending, but yes, he would. The Board of Zoning Appeals would need to find that request met all 5 factors, and from just a cursory review of understanding the property, staff believes it would be difficult for that request to meet all 5 of those tests under state law.
So I'm just gonna go through this one step at a time. So, anything not arterials, let's say 3 of the 4 sides here, I'm just gonna take it as a box right now. With this, the front part of the box would be solid and the other 3 sides would have to meet a 90%. So it's not opaque, right? So you
Yes.
don't have,
Solid, yeah.
yeah, so it would mostly be solid.
Yes.
And then it had to meet the 4 colors. And the neighborhood would have, there had to be a application to the neighbors prior to the other 3 sides going up as.
If it was adjacent to residential zoned or residential use property, we would go through our administrative adjustment process, which is where.
Let's just say our box I'm
Yep.
talking about is in a residential.
Yep. So then we
Right.
would stick a sign out there for 10 days, and with that, the residents would have the opportunity to provide comments. If we received an adverse comment,
Yeah.
we are unable to approve that administrative adjustment. They would then, their option would be then to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and request an exception. And the exception has its own set of tests that are set in the city ordinance. That is not set under state law.
And what's an exception?
An exception is similar to what most folks would look at as like a special use permit, of where we allow for it on this one property because it
Yeah.
meets certain
Is a
standards.
special use permit available for the artillery because of the certain area? That way we're not amending something that's gonna affect the whole town, but rather just because of the uniqueness of this particular area is a special use permit available.
That would be, I mean, we would have to change the ordinance to allow that. The avenue would be a variance test. The test for variance is a much more stringent test than the test for an exception. But one of the things that we do look at is the impact to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that would be an issue on an exception is if we did receive negative comments from the neighborhood, then
Yeah.
obviously there is a concern in the neighborhood of
Does
that.
publication or anything go up with an exception to get?
It goes to the same public hearing requirements, so we
Yeah.
send a notice to everybody within 200 feet, we put a sign on the property, and we notice it in the newspaper.
Could this, because I don't think that this is unreasonable. I think this could be used citywide because you are protecting, I believe it's very thoughtful. You have the 90%, you have everything, I believe. It's pretty solid ordinance. Are you saying that we would need to amend a small portion of it to also allow for a special use? Or is that in a different ordinance that would need to be?
I mean, you have a couple of options. You could amend subsection 4 here, of where we could say something along the lines of, you could either do an administrative adjustment route, of where we would allow it along arterials, state highways, collector roadways with an administrative adjustment. And then we already have in our ordinance what happens if we get an adverse comment. It goes as an exception, and then there is that process that it goes through.
How does the rest of the council feel about that? Instead of a motion, approval or denial, but an amendment that he just clarified with the, that way it can be used for just a certain, without it being citywide. And I do believe this ordinance as citywide, it still protects a lot.
A point of order I would say, though, that would still be citywide, because somebody would be able to avail themselves to an administrative adjustment. And so that's the challenge that we're dealing with here is we want to have these, we want to have this citywide. We also want to be very careful that we are not forwarding kind of this unspoken idea that certain parts of the city are less deserving of.
But it's very industrial, and that's why I'm asking.
It certainly is.
Is the special use then? What could we amend into that so that maybe it's a special use permit, just so that it's just that one property, because we're taking into factors of the mostly industrial location of it.
I mean, I think the issue is that you're trying to solve an individual property issue with an ordinance that would be citywide. So really, what the best avenue would be for this property owner would probably be to request a variance, and then go through the variance process that way. That is typically what we have when there is a unique issue on a property. Is that so? If you have discomfort in allowing chain link with slats throughout the city, then I mean that's what this ordinance would do. So that's just something that the
I think there's a
council
lot
needs
built
to.
into it that I don't see a problem with it being citywide. Personally, I'm trying to tackle the artillery portion. I think that this part is, I think it's very thoughtful and could be used citywide. The artillery portion, I do not think, from the recommendation for Mr. Hillebrand, the artillery, I do not think should be citywide. So I'm just asking what kind of avenue.
A variance would be probably his best option, because it is an individual property that has individual characteristics that may be unique, that are not shared with other properties within the city, or even within the same area.
Yeah. Okay.
So we vote on this, doesn't matter we vote yes or no, he still has to go and get a variance, correct?
He would have to, yes. I
Yes.
mean, if he was unable to comply with this
Right.
change, absolutely.
But the likelihood of it, this, I believe, would ease regulations, which I'm kind of for, and I think it's very thought out to where it could be used citywide.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna open a can of worms if we do this. I think that the best thing for him to do is go for a variance on this. Cause you're gonna open, it's gonna affect a lot of people.
But I feel like if he goes for a variance, it's going to be an exercise in futility because he's not going to meet the standards as laid
Yeah.
out by the law. And so
Yeah.
it's just more work for him for not any payout. So it really is incumbent upon us to give him some direction
Yeah,
so we
and
can
I-
move the
I
project.
agree.
I think the ease in regulations, I think it's very thought out. You have 90% in there. It's not like it's a lazy, just whatever goes type of ordinance. I mean, the property owner is not even satisfied with it, but I still think it's a compromise, and it's one that's done tactfully in a way that I feel that our city would not be damaged by it. You still have protections in there.
Is that a motion?
Motion to approve. Do I have to read the majority vote of 4 of the 5 counts? Okay, sorry. All right. Motion to approve by at least a majority vote of 4 of the 5 council members, return to the Planning Commission the recommendation of the Planning Commission to accept amendments to sections 27-202, 27-503E, and the addition to 27-907D of the zoning regulations of the Hutchinson City Code.
Second.
Iris J. Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave Line,
No.
Soldner,
No.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
So as just a procedural point of order, then that would mean that this ordinance request has been denied. So
We'll have
we
to
would
bring
not.
it back up in a few months.
Yes.
I'd like to request a break of the council, if you don't mind, for 5 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
Me twisting my chair is not because I'm nervous. I just gotta go.
first edition.
We lost somebody.
Not here.
Oh, here they come.
Sorry. Oh, well, that's really loud. It's usually never that loud. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I'm here for, my name is Haleen Burklow. I'm the Associate Planner in Planning and Development, and I'm bringing to you the subdivision final plat for SDF 21-000008. This was brought to the Planning Commission on October 26th with a vote of 7-0 approval. The request is to plat parcels located at 1000 East 30th Avenue and 3002 Garden Grove Parkway. Sorry, I'm still a little catching my breath. Sorry about that. Oh. And it's not working. Great. No. There. Okay. Sorry. The property owner is Redbird Properties LLC, located at the 1000 East 30th Avenue here in Hutch. The surveyor and applicant is Dan Garber with Garber Surveying Service, PA, in Hutch as well, off of Plum Street. Okay, so this is the final plat that was approved by the Planning Commission on the 26th. The vote was 7-0. I'm actually going to move to the next slide because it's kind of small here. It's just zooming in so you can see it a little bit better right there. So these are the properties that we're talking about, and the reason why we're here today is because the properties were never platted. That's really what it is. There is an office building, a medical office there, and it's the Guest Orthodontics off of 30th Avenue. That is this building right here, as you can see on lot 1. So you'd go off of East 30th Avenue to go into the parking lot right here. And then also they're wanting to plat lot 2 as well, but not currently. So just, there may be future development later on lot 2. So just giving you an idea of where we're talking about. And of course, the address for lot 2 is off of Garden Grove Parkway right here. So here's an aerial view of the properties I was just mentioning. Here's the parking lot I mentioned off of 30th Avenue right here. You turn right and you go right into lot 1 right here into the medical office address at 1000 East 30th Avenue, but they are wanting to also plat their other property at 3002 Garden Grove Parkway as well. Again, no development is going to be spoken of today, but there could be future development later, and that is probably why they're requesting for it to be platted, because it was never platted in the past in 1979 when this medical office was built.
Okay.
Okay, so you saw the aerials. Now I'm going to show you the surrounding areas just to get you a little more familiar with where we're talking about if you're not aware where 30th is or Garden Grove Parkway is. So here's the northeast view of the property. This is the 1000 East that I just mentioned, the Guest Orthodontics building. Here is the southeast view, which shows the Spangles right here, Peerless Tires, and O'Reilly's Auto Parts right there. Just a closer look, it truly is Spangles, Peerless. And you just can't see the auto parts, but they're right there on the southeast. Sorry about that, I'm forgetting this one. So this is the other south view, and it shows Moore and Webb Chiropractic right here. And then on the other side of it behind there would be Color by Design. So this is the south view from the property. This would be the west side of the property along Garden Grove Parkway, Pizza Hut right here. Okay, sorry, there we go. The parking lot right here. I'm mentioning it because, sorry, my mouse keeps freezing up. There we go. The parking lot continues on west onto the north, and This property right here is actually commercial property as well. This is C1 right here. All of the properties around these two properties that are being requested to be platted are commercial C4, but this one right here that I'm trying to show as well as I can is C1. And these are residences up here off of 31st, I believe. In the next picture, I'll show you this side. So this property right here is 3004 Garden Grove Parkway. It is also C4. This one is, I believe, a dental office, and it is C1. So this is the northeast view. And this is the view of lot 2 that is requesting to be platted, sorry. So, sorry, my mouse is stuck again. There, okay, so then this is just the better view of lot 2 that we got, and it is vacant. No future development, but there could be future development, but just as of right now, there is not. Also, sorry, my mouse is stuck again. As you can see, this is the Toyota Ford dealership on the north and northeast, which continues all the way down to lot 1 on the east side. So, staff's recommending that the subdivision final plat be signed on the Mylar, and that the applicant provide us a check for the filing fee. Sorry. Staff's recommendation is motion for approval of the SDF 21-000008 for Gust Addition, located at 1000 East 30th Avenue and 3002 Garden Grove Parkway, based upon the finding that the plat is compliant with the Hutchinson subdivision regulations. Are there any questions?
I've just got a hypothetical question. Say Dr. Gus was interested in expanding his current dental center. Could he be allowed to put an attached addition going into this lot?
Are you talking about lot 2?
Yes, right, yeah.
An addition.
Yeah, an addition.
I believe they would have to combine because you can't have a structure crossing a property because it'll go into a setback.
Sure, okay. So it would have to be detached and not on the
It could be
lot line?
detached. It could be detached, but it would have to be on lot 1.
Would have to be on lot 1, not
Yes.
lot 2.
Correct.
Or they could come back and combine lot 1 and lot 2.
They could
That is
combine
And build,
and
correct?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
okay, gotcha. All right.
Okay. All that said, I will move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the final plat for the Gust Addition.
Second.
Iris Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Solomon?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Item 8B, consider agreement with Kdot for construction engineering services for the Washington Street Bicycle Boulevard.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Jeff Peterson, Director of Engineering. Today I have a couple of agreements with Kdot. This first item is for construction engineering excuse me, I'm getting all flustered here, but it's for construction engineering and inspection services during the construction of the actual project. Sometimes we hire this out. This time we do have the certified personnel to actually do the inspection, which we did similar to the State Fair multi-use trails. So this agreement is with Kdot for a maximum cost not to exceed $30,649.60, which would be costs potentially coming back to us from the grant portion of the project. So with that, and those fees are, this project is 80% funded by the Kdot or for the grant funding and 20% funded by the city in this respect. So I do recommend that the contract with Kdot and Kansas Department of Transportation for construction engineering inspection services during the construction of the Bicycle Boulevard be approved by City Council. So do you have any specific questions as we go into this?
No, just saying that the city, your department will be doing the inspections and being reimbursed
Correct.
for it?
Yep, and we would get reimbursed if there's grant funds available for
Yeah.
that at the end, so.
Well, that's great. Anybody else have any comments? Motion to approve the agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation for the city to provide construction engineering inspection services during the construction of the Washington Street Bicycle Boulevard, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Hutchinson, Carvalho?
Yes.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8C, consider City Connecting Link Improvement Program Agreement with Kdot for maintenance improvements on K61 Highway.
Again, this is another agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation. Again, it's the City Connecting Link Improvement Program, or CCLIP for short. That's kind of the way we look at it from the Kansas Department of Transportation. This program provides funding assistance to municipalities that have portions of state highways that run through them. For us, this includes, of course, K61, which runs through the city limits. The city applied for and received 2 CCLIP grant awards, grants for this work on K61, and they were both, well, 2 of them were approved in 2 different years for actually the 2023 fiscal year, Kansas's 2023 fiscal year, for when these projects could proceed. Since they were both awarded for the same fiscal year, we wanted to combine these projects into one project to bid it all at the same time. So that's what this does, and also tells us what the grant amounts would be at this point. So the project involves a number of things. It involves milling and overlaying K61 and 17th Avenue intersection. It also involves milling and overlaying K61 northbound from Highway 50, essentially north to Avenue G, as well as chip sealing the northbound lanes, or the northbound shoulder from Avenue G to Lorraine and 11th to 17th. So that's what the total project estimated costs at this point are $704,727. The Kdot's portion, if they were single projects by themselves, Kdot only funds, well, the grant portion would be up to $300,000. This combines this till we get to about $599,000 for the project, with the city portion of $105,000. So I would recommend that the City Council approve the CCLIP agreement with Kansas Department of Transportation for this project. So, any questions?
I move to approve the agreement with KDOT for the city to provide, I'm sorry. I move to approve the CCLIP agreement with KDOT for project number 61-78U-2395-01, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
Hutchinson, Carvalho?
Yes.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8D, consider bid report for repairs to the 5th Avenue Bridge over the Harsha Canal.
Morning, Council. Jessica Lowe, Assistant City Engineer. I have several bridge projects to talk to you about today. You probably saw the agenda. Hope you're comfy. But I want to give you a little bit of background on the city's bridges first. Several decades ago, after a series of deadly bridge catastrophes around the United States, the Federal Highway Administration created the National Bridge Inventory and tasked owners of bridges open to public traffic to perform regular inspections of their bridges and keep better track of what those conditions are. The FHWA's ultimate goal of this is to remove deficient bridges from the system, or from inside the United States. These inspections are not optional, and it's something that the city has been complying with. We currently own and are responsible for maintaining 62 of these regulated bridges. Every 2 years, they're inspected and records are sent to Kdot for inclusion in the NBI. Many of our bridges are over 40 years old. We recognize that a significant amount of funds are going to be required to start making repairs to some of these bridges and replacing them. So in 2019, we started the Bridge Maintenance Reserve. After 3 years of saving, the balance in that reserve is getting close to $300,000. During our last round of biennial bridge inspections in 2020, we tasked our consultant bridge inspectors to provide a list of bridge maintenance and repair items.
Staff, along with our consultant, prioritize those repairs and replacement projects. So the next series of projects I'm talking about are the projects that were highest on that list. I do want to say, going a little off topic, I know someone will ask, why isn't Woody Seat included in this group? Woody Seat was already identified as a priority. It's already in the budget. So we looked at all the other bridges that are not part of that particular pipeline. Okay, so the first bridge is the Fifth Avenue Bridge over the Harsha Canal, shown here. It's a concrete bridge. It's currently exhibiting map and longitudinal cracking in the deck and concrete spalling underneath the bridge along the drip edge. It shows some pictures of that. A more detailed inspection of the deck found multiple areas on top that require partial and full depth patching. And then the concrete spalling that's visible underneath the bridge, it doesn't just look bad, but if we don't address it, it will continue to migrate upward into the deck and cause additional deck issues. So this project was bid with a base bid and 2 alternates. The base bid includes those repairs to the deck and then application of a multi-layer polymer overlay that helps protect the deck for another 10 to 15 years from chloride attack, which is like the salt that we put on it during the wintertime. Alternate 1 includes concrete surface repairs to the underside of the deck, shown on the left. And then alternate 2 includes a single layer polymer overlay to the barriers and to the sidewalks on the outside to get us a little more life out of that as well. So on Tuesday, November 9th, we opened bids from 4 contractors. The lowest bid, including all the alternates, was from PCI Roads for a total of $254,569.42 and was below the engineer's estimate. This project will be funded by the bridge maintenance reserve that I talked about. It should be noted that this project alone is depleting our 3 years of savings. So with the number of bridges that we have in our inventory, it's important to keep funding that reserve. And with that, staff recommends that City Council accept the low total bid and all our alternates in the amount of $254,569.42 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract with PCI Roads. Jessica, can you tell me a little bit about PCI Roads and have we used them before?
To my knowledge, no. This is really one of the first bridge projects the city is taking on outside of the a little emergency repair you may have noticed on Plum because of that accident. We haven't worked with PCI that I know of. One thing that's required when you do a bridge project and that Kdot requires is that contractors have to be pre-qualified through Kdot.
Okay.
And so that was a requirement we had as well. Everyone that bid was a pre-qualified contractor. We spoke with our consultant about working with them as well, and they felt very comfortable. So it is something new for us, but.
Are they out of Wichita or?
They actually are headquartered in Minnesota, but I know they have people locally. They do a lot of work in the area.
Okay, thank you.
I would move to approve the low bid and all alternates with PCI Roads for repairs to the Fifth Avenue Bridge over the Harsha Canal in the amount of $254,569.42, subject to all legal requirements, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Tyra Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Solomon?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8E, consider amendment to the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group for repairs to the Fifth Avenue Bridge over the Harsha Canal.
So I think I mentioned to complete the design of this project, we utilized a bridge consultant, JEO Consulting Group. The original agreement with them was signed on August 10th, 2021 for an amount of $17,245 with the understanding that construction services would be negotiated after the design is completed. This design fee is being funded by the engineering department's professional services budget. After reviewing JEO's amended scope and fee for construction services, staff recommends City Council approve the amendment to the consultant agreement with JEO for those services in the amount of $5,285 with a new hourly not to exceed contract amount of $22,530 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Well, I would move to approve the amendment to the consultant agreement with the JEO Consulting Group, Inc. for construction services in the amount of $5,285 with a new hourly not to exceed contract amount of $22,500 and authorize the mayor to sign.
I second that.
Kyra Stick-Carvella.
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8F, consider bid report for the 11th Avenue Bridge replacement over the east side drain.
Okay. The 11th Avenue Bridge over the East Side Drain was built in 1930 and expanded in 1974. Since that time, the bridge has degraded, it suffered a failure requiring a temporary repair to remain open, and now needs to be replaced. Based on condition, this bridge was selected to be replaced and was included in the fiscal year 2020 budget. This bridge will be replaced with a concrete box culvert. After completion of design by JEO Consulting, the city received 3 bids for this project on November 9th. And the lowest bid was received from Meese Construction for an amount of $465,244.85, again below the engineer's estimate. Staff recommends City Council accept the low bid of $465,244.85 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract with Meese Construction.
Why is there such a big difference between these and the other ones? Yeah.
That's a good question. I can't speak to what the
Yeah.
other bidders were thinking when they put together their bids. I
just
can
get
say that both
concerned
Meese
sometimes.
and Reese are
Yeah.
pre-qualified Kdot contractors,
Yeah.
whereas Ward Davis is not. So I'm not sure where he was getting his numbers, but we looked at this estimate very closely, and I think that Meese is more in line with what the price should be.
Yeah, it's a lot closer to the engineer's estimate.
Yeah, and right now contractors are busy. We were
Yeah.
actually nervous if we would get any bids.
Yeah.
And this is a very specific type of structure. You have bridges and you have culverts, and technically it's a bridge, but it's a box culvert. It requires a specific crew to build, or usually companies have their own crew, and those
Yeah.
crews just happen to be available, and so we think we got a good price.
Okay.
Would the new bridge reduce the load rating, or did I read that incorrectly?
No, it will not. Our concern is that if left unaddressed now, as the bridge stands now, it could have a reduced load rating.
Okay.
There's another program funded by the FHWA where, as part of the NBI and everything I had talked about, they noticed that there are a lot of bridges that continue to deteriorate in the system, and they're still taking full highway loads, and they're not being looked at. And so the FHWA put together a grant program, and states are required to, every so many years, load rate every single one of their bridges. I shouldn't say every single. Over like 10 years, all the bridges in the state will be load rated. And so we started that process, and bridges that are very similar to 11th, with the same amount of soil cover over them, same construction, have been required to be posted for load. And so once that 11th Avenue Bridge comes up in that process, which should be next year, I think, it likely will receive the same rating, which would be bad for a busy
For
street.
sure.
It would be no fire trucks, no heavy traffic, things
Yeah.
like that.
When, if approved, would this come before that load rating then, the construction?
Potentially, yes. We talked to Meese a little bit and asked when they might start. They're thinking, maybe March or April. We do have in our contract that it has to be finished before the state fair starts, so we don't have the 11th Avenue corridor shut down, because this will be a road closure for a few months. So they will be done in August or September, and we're thinking that some of those inspections may be happening in the summer. But they do the inspection in the summer, but then it takes a while to do all the calculations and everything else. So we might be able to get ahead of that.
Great, thank you.
I have a question, Jessica, that I know you don't have the answer to right now just because of the recency. Is there any possibility with the new infrastructure bill that we'll be able to recoup some of these costs? Do we have any feeling on that?
I can't answer that. I don't
Okay,
know if
I didn't
even the
figure
people
you
that
could,
signed the
but-
bill could answer that at this
Well,
point.
I thought maybe there was some chatter in the industry.
I don't know about recouping, but we definitely have a slew of projects lined up that if
Okay.
funding were available, we would love to take advantage of that.
Okay. Okay, that said, then I will move to approve the low bid with Meese Construction in the amount of $465,244.85 for the 11th Avenue Bridge replacement over the east side drain, subject to all legal requirements. Authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris De Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8G, consider amendment to the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group Construction Services for the 11th Avenue Bridge replacement over the East Side Drain.
Okay, so I mentioned before again that to complete the design of the 11th Avenue Bridge project, we selected JEO through the RFQ process. We entered into an agreement with them in April of this year for an amount of $47,745 to design this bridge, and then with, again, the understanding that when bidding and design were completed, we would negotiate construction services. So during design, it should be noted, we identified a few additional items that needed to be addressed in the scope, and so we did sign an initial amendment in the amount of $4,605. But now that design is over, JEO has once again provided their scope and fee for construction, and we've reviewed their proposal. We recommend that City Council approve the amendment to the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting for construction services on this project in the amount of $7,955 for a new hourly not-to-exceed contract amount of $60,305, and authorize the mayor to sign the attached agreement.
I move to approve the amendment to the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group, Inc. for construction services in the amount of $7,955 for a new hourly not-to-exceed contract amount of $60,305, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
Iris De Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 8H, consider consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group for the design of bridge replacements over the East Side Drain.
Okay, so for the fiscal year 2022, engineering identified 3 bridges that needed to be replaced or removed. These bridges are Pleasant Street over the East Side Drain, Hogland Street over the East Side Drain, and 2nd Avenue over the East Side Drain. I do want to mention in our initial budget proposal, I believe it was 6th Avenue over the East Side Drain instead of Hogland that was listed, and that was approved, and then we swapped the bridges out after that review that we went through with our consultant, and we looked a little more closely and realized that the Hogland bridge needed to be addressed first. And so that's why that's here, and it may be different than what you were remembering from budget season. All of these bridges are either composed partially or wholly from corrugated metal pipes, or what we call CMPs. With very little soil cover over the pipes, like I was telling you, the loads over these types of bridges are often restricted. This is problematic for emergency vehicles, trash trucks, school buses, etc. The bridge at Pleasant is a concrete box culvert bridge surrounded by 2 corrugated metal pipes. The most recent inspection in 2020 indicated that the bridge has degraded severely enough it actually now requires a yearly inspection instead of every 2 years. This bridge is listed as structurally deficient and is the lowest rated bridge in our bridge inventory. The bridge at Hogland Street is also a concrete box culvert surrounded by 2 CMPs. Those CMPs have both previously failed, forcing the city to perform temporary repairs to keep the bridge open. Those repairs are now showing signs of distress, and so this bridge also needs to be replaced to ensure that roadway remains open. And finally, the 2nd Avenue Bridge was constructed from all corrugated metal pipes in about the 1930s. Since that time, the CMPs have failed, again requiring repairs to keep the crossing open. While we were looking at this and evaluating it, we started taking traffic counts and noticed over a 2-week period, the average daily traffic is less than 70 vehicles. A bridge like this could cost about $385,000 to $400,000 to replace, and so we are not planning to replace this, but rather removing it and end 2nd Avenue at the East Side Drain. And you can see here at the map, 2nd Avenue already kind of ends, and then you have to go up a little alley to get over to 3rd. So the plan would be to just end that and then have access up to 3rd or down to 1st.
What is the notification process? I guess we probably don't have to notify anybody, but I think we might be smart to do so. Can you walk me through that?
I don't know if there's a formal process before the project would start, and if approved, I think after today we would send letters out to all the people that in the area that would be affected by that, just to let them know it's coming up. Construction on this wouldn't likely be happening until late next year or early 2023.
Okay. I mean, it's not a thoroughfare by any stretch of the imagination, but I think
I drive it all the time.
Yeah, it will be disruptive to people who use that to jot over. So
Right.
I just want to make sure we're.
I actually use that to jot over.
We're just trying to be
month,
fiscally
but
responsible.
Only because
when-
my brother lives off Chemical Street right there.
Yeah.
And then I own a house that's right there off 2nd Street.
Yeah.
And so, like,
between my
I-
brother's house
yeah.
and because for maintenance work and stuff. But I would agree. I mean, there's some people that like four-wheel through there. There's like this.
It's a strange, I don't
It's
even
a
know if it's a
strange
street,
area,
actually. It's
yeah,
like an
I-
alley or something, and it's kind of strange.
It is a very strange area. Because like I said, I've driven it a bunch of times, so it's really weird. There's like almost like where people have cut through, and I don't know. I mean, 2nd Street does end and 3rd Street does end, and it was like this makeshift little roadway that connect the two.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. Yeah.
I appreciate your forethought in trying to eliminate one from our system and save money, so.
Yeah.
Well, we have
But yeah, I definitely
61
think we
others
should-
that we can spend that money on, so.
Yeah. I definitely think letting people in the area know, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think
agree.
that's definitely something.
I would like to say, again, this is in our approved 22 CIP budget, and the estimated total project cost at this time is 1.2 million. Hopefully, as we get a little closer with design and maybe construction prices will come down a little bit, that number will also go down.
And what was that for?
That's for the replacement of
The three?
Pleasant, Hogland, and the removal of Second would be 1.2 million total. So JEO Consulting Group, once again, was the consultant selected for this project. They have the staff, qualifications, and expertise to complete this successfully. They've worked with us on several recent bridge replacement and repair projects, and they've provided excellent customer service and on-time project delivery across the board. So the agreement presented today is for design services for the replacement of 2 bridges and the removal of 1 in an hourly contract with a not-to-exceed amount of $95,170. Once design is complete and bids are opened, we again anticipating negotiating a construction engineering services contract with them. So we recommend City Council approve the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group for an hourly not-to-exceed agreement amount of $95,170 and authorize the mayor to sign.
I would move to approve the consultant agreement with JEO Consulting Group for bridge replacements over the east side drain for design services for an hourly not to exceed contract cost of $95,170 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Iris DeCarvalho?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Item 9, report of city officials.
Sarah, I'm gonna start with you today.
I don't have anything at the moment.
Okay. Jade.
I have 2 items,
That's
if
fine.
you'll permit. Thank you. The first is an inquiry about what we're going to do to orientate the newly elected council members, and if anything will be required of the current council to assist with that. A few items I thought might be helpful to go over would be staff versus council obligations, a budget overview, the comp and master plans, and just introduction to the different departments. Perhaps they're all aware of that, but I know I found that really helpful when I was coming onto the council. And another thing I wanted to bring up that might be of interest is the League of Kansas Municipalities Municipal Training Institute on Ethics and Civility is coming up on December 8th, and that will be virtual this year. It's a 3-hour training. I think I did it in 2013. It's very good. I was wondering if we would be available to offer that to newly elected council members if they're interested in taking it. The price is very low. It's like $35.
Absolutely will. We've been in, email communication anyway with the incoming electeds to let them know that we're trying to find some dates where we can get everybody in the same room at the same time so that we can knock that out.
Okay.
Great idea.
Fantastic. The other item I had was on a proposed crisis unit for adults to go into the former ESDAC building on East 2nd. I really wanted to express my appreciation to Ryan and you. I requested some information on this last night and already had it by this morning. But as a process question, I'm curious does that go? Well, first off, why is the zoning different for that particular building versus maybe for the youth center? Because I think the question is, that needs to be rezoned for overnight stays. And I couldn't answer that. I figure it has something to do with an institutional versus commercial designation.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So the property in question is zoned industrial. Because it is overnight stays, it leans more towards like a transient residential. We don't allow for residential uses in industrial zones, and so that is why it is having to be rezoned.
Okay. So I didn't realize that quarter. So I'm.
Yep. That area is zoned industrial, and the main reason is because the Hutch News is right there, and that is considered an industrial use, and so that area, there's some self-storage or some other type of light industrial uses there, and that is why it was zoned industrial.
That leads me to a question about our comprehensive land use map. I was trying to find that yesterday on the website and I couldn't, which, by the way, the website looks fantastic. I noticed that was redone, but I don't know if that would be helpful to put that on the website so that when I get questions like this, because I had no idea what it was zoned. I would have never guessed industrial, because doesn't New Beginnings have the Noel Lodge across the street too?
That is a little bit further down, and that is zoned, I believe, C4. And that is an allowed use because it's considered an emergency shelter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this kind of be a similar?
It's close, but it doesn't meet the definition of emergency shelter. So it's kind of splitting hairs. But even in emergency shelter is not permitted in industrial zone. So we're zoning it to something that we're requesting it to be rezoned to something that would allow for that use.
Okay. And then does that only go through planning, or would it have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals?
Doesn't go through Board of Zoning Appeals, so the process is that the public hearing is held at the Planning Commission, and then it has to wait at least 14 days because there is a 14-day protest period for rezonings, and then it would come to City Council for the final approval, as you are the legislative body of the city.
Okay. And so the long-term use map continues to have that corridor as industrial?
Yeah, so with this rezoning, that parcel will be changed on the future land use map to show it as commercial. One of the things that I hope to do in 2022 when we redo our future land use map is really look a lot closer at it, because I will say that a lot of what happened was the existing zoning was just carried over to the future land use map, and so there was some planning that was done, but that's probably an area that probably doesn't need to be industrial. It kind of sticks out in a strange way, but yeah, that's something that we're looking at when we redo the comp plan, to probably take a closer look at our future land use map to make sure it's still serving what we need for it to do.
Do you anticipate any pushback from the Planning Commission on? Okay, because I'm really excited about what they're doing. I know it'll be very helpful to our police department and our hospital to have an area to take people except the jail or the hospital. So it's really going to be a critical service. So anything we can do to expedite that would be great. Thank you so much, Ryan. That's all I had.
Mr. Davidman?
No, I have nothing this morning.
Nothing.
Okay, up to me now. No, I have nothing today. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to Hutch Salt, I know we've had an increasing flow of communications internally with regard to, in the spirit of bridge replacement, the deteriorated culverts that they have, and some of our temporary efforts to help them through the inconvenience of that as we get that project engineered and slated for construction. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to my office or city engineer's office. Jessica's the lead on that. She's going to be handling that, has already met at least once, perhaps several times with Jim Barta. So I think this is going to continue for some period of time until we have the project completed. Just expect weekly and sometimes daily communications from Hutch Salt. We're doing everything we can for them. Thank you.
Nothing else?
I'll rest. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
So move.
Second.
Iris Dick-Rolla?
Yes.
Dave Light?
Yes?
Holdner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Basic.